Just shut up and make some food or something.
My husband decided to live with his sister-in-law without asking me, and said that to me. He doesn't listen to my opinion at all. What did I even like about this person? Afterwards, his bigamy was revealed.
You're the best, so why not?
He said, and my sister-in-law responded, Don't complain about small things. And she acted as if I was being selfish. I can't take it anymore. I left the house without saying anything to the two of them. I'm looking forward to seeing how they will react to the hell that awaits them from now on. My name is Nancy, and I am 28 years old. My husband Jackson and I were classmates in college. We didn't have any interaction at first, but I fell in love with Jackson, who was the star player of the soccer team at first sight. Eventually, we were introduced by a mutual friend and became friends. Later on, I continued to pursue him, and when I confessed to him despite it being a long shot, he agreed to be with me. I remember being so happy that I felt like I was about to faint at that time. Jackson was the classic follow me type of guy. It seemed like he would become a bit of a controlling husband after we got married. However, I've always been the type of person who likes to follow a man, so I love that aspect of Jackson. I thought it was wonderful that he always decided on the location for our dates and what we would do together, and I found him to be a reliable and nice person. Since I pursued him and he agreed to be with me, I always tried to please him. Eventually, we continued dating after graduation, and after working for a while, we decided to get married. After we got married, Jackson turned out to be the classic controlling husband that I had imagined. In fact, he was quite thorough in this regard. Jackson never does any housework. Instead, he gives me instructions with just a few words like coffee or food. I prepare breakfast every day, including Jackson's favorite salad. I also pack his lunch and everything he needs for the day in his bag, then see him off at the door. When he comes home, I go to the door to greet him, take his bag and suit off, and that's how our life is. It's a life where I see him off at the door and greet him at the door. I wasn't allowed to choose what to watch on TV, and it was always Jackson's favorite programs that we watched. When I brought dinner, he always started eating before me, leaving me with the leftovers. When I talked to my friends about this, most of them laughed and made comments like, "You're really putting up with a lot." Or what? I'd be so disappointed in a husband like that. To be honest, even though we were both working and I was also taking care of the household, this lifestyle was a bit difficult. But we were able to spend time together and get along well, so I thought this kind of marriage was okay. I've always been someone who liked taking care of others, so even while picking up socks that Jackson left lying around, I felt happy with this kind of life. This went on for about 6 months. I was starting to get used to being married to Jackson when I began to want children. However, my husband had been going out more and more, saying that he was busy with work, and he didn't agree to have children.
You know how busy I am with work these days. Of course, I want to have kids someday, but I'll decide when the time is right. Just wait for me to decide without saying anything.
After he said that, I didn't bring up the topic of children again. One day, my husband came home looking very unhappy. When I asked him what happened, he said,
"I got into a fight with my boss today and got fired."
My husband has always been a bit short-tempered and quick to pick fights, even in college, when he got into some trouble because of it. But I never imagined that he would do something like this as a working adult, so I was at a loss for words. I didn't understand. My husband.
Annoying bosses who can't do their jobs are total assholes. Well, I'll find another job, and won't worry about it.
I just kept quiet as my husband said only that and started watching TV. Well, if that's what my husband thinks, Up until then, my husband basically never listened to my opinion or consulted with me. I had never heard him talk about having issues with his boss before, so it came as a surprise to me. However, I decided to support him in his job search without criticizing him. But even after losing his job, my husband just lazed around the house and showed no signs of looking for work. And despite being unemployed, he didn't help out with any household chores. I was left alone to work hard on both my job and housework, with a non-working husband at home. However, due to the existing relationship, I couldn't bring myself to say to my husband, "Since you're not working, could you at least do some housework?" I am currently trying to find a topic to talk about. "How's your job search going?" I asked.
What? Are you rushing me?
After being told that in an angry tone, I became unable to bring up the topic of job hunting anymore. As I spent some time wondering what was going on, I began to feel a certain discomfort. Since there was no indication that my husband was looking for a new job, I assumed he was home all day. However, when I came home from work, my husband was indeed at home, but there was no sign that he had been spending time there. There were no signs of him using the kitchen, toilet, or bathroom. There was no evidence of him using any dishes either. Since my husband never does any household chores, there should be dishes left behind if he had eaten something. There were no water droplets in the bathroom, and there was no change in the food in the fridge. I felt like my husband hadn't been home all day. And my husband looks terribly tired, even though he must not have done anything all day. Feeling uneasy, I thought, maybe I'm just assuming and he's actually job hunting. I thought this way. Or maybe even if he's at home all day, he might be tired from something. I tried to think that he might have gone out and found something to distract himself. As I was going about my daily life like that, one day, my sister-in-law Mia suddenly showed up at our house with a large package. And with one sentence, "I'll be with you for a while," she burst into our house with a large package. I didn't understand what was going on suddenly. Then my husband said,
Good job, sis.
and welcomed his sister with a smile. When I asked my husband what was going on, he told me that his sister was getting a divorce and had nowhere else to go. So she came to our house. But I didn't know anything about it. When I said that, my husband immediately looked unhappy.
What? Do you have a problem with that? We should naturally help out our family when they're in trouble, right?
I'm used to my husband's dominant attitude. Even if he said something unfair, the best way for us to live in peace was to ignore it. But this time, I couldn't just accept it like before. But couldn't she go back to her parents' home? Our house isn't that big. Isn't Mia going to feel uncomfortable? I conveyed my thoughts in a gentle way, but my husband still became unhappy.
Shut up! Just shut up and make some food.
He yelled at me and then ignored me. So we couldn't even have a conversation about it. And that's how Mia ended up living with us without any discussion. Our life together became a living hell. Until now, my husband and I were able to manage the household chores between the two of us, but now it's 3 people's worth of work. Mia doesn't do any housework, just like my husband, even when I ask her to help out a little bit. "No, it's annoying. You've been doing everything for my little brother until now, right? It's not a problem to have one more person to take care of. Treat me the same way as you treat my little brother." She completely ignores my requests. And unlike my husband, who doesn't seem to be around all day, Mia is always in the house and never goes out. "Hey, Could you buy me a new lipstick? Get the one that I always use. I want a few notebooks, so buy me 3. Okay? She gives me orders to buy even the smallest things. The most difficult thing was that my sister-in-law didn't contribute a single penny to rent or living expenses. Until then, I had reduced my working hours in order to not neglect the household chores. But with only reduced pay, it wasn't enough to cover the living expenses for 3 people. So I went back to working full-time. It was hell, having 2 people who didn't do anything in the house while working full-time. I pushed myself to do the household chores with my exhausted body every day and was ordered around by the 2 of them. However, a change came to this kind of life. It turned out that my husband was committing bigamy. Strictly speaking, my husband had another family. The trigger was the wedding ring. I was sitting next to my husband on the couch, and we were having a casual conversation. I noticed that the ring my husband was wearing was not his wedding ring, which he bought with me. At that moment, I didn't blame him, and instead I decided to hire a private investigator to investigate the situation. The fee for hiring a private investigator was a considerable expense for me, who was struggling to make ends meet. But I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Considering our past life together, I was convinced that something was going on. And the result of the investigation revealed that he was committing bigamy. The investigation revealed that my husband was not working in the other home either. And the woman, the one with whom he was having the affair, was working. The woman's job was a night job. Therefore, my husband had been living a lifestyle where he spent his days at the other family's home while I was at work, and spent his evenings at our home when the other woman was working. It seemed like a pretty overwhelming life, but my husband seemed to get through it well. Later on, I found out that my husband had explained to his other partner that it was inconvenient to wake her up in the morning, and that he had a different lifestyle, so he rented an apartment and spent his time there during the unexplained blank periods to his other family. I was amazed that he would put effort into something like that, especially when he didn't lift a finger to help with the housework. Despite not doing anything during the day, my husband seemed tired for some reason, which turned out to be due to his double life. One day, during dinner, I decided to talk to him about it. Since my sister-in-law was also present, I had no choice but to tell her as well. I conveyed the results of my investigation and confronted my husband about what was going on. Although at first my husband seemed a little shaken, he soon returned to his usual arrogant self.
You're such a troublesome woman for investigating everything. I admit, I led a bigamous lifestyle, but you're the one I married, right? You're the first wife, so what's the problem?
He said, trying to justify his behavior. Why did you do something like that? When I asked him, my husband replied bluntly.
I liked you both equally and couldn't choose. What else could I do?
I was surprised by his answer, as I didn't expect him to have any feelings for me. But that doesn't mean I can forgive what he did. Then my sister-in-law interrupted. Hey, isn't it annoying that you make such a fuss just because he had another household? He says you, Nancy, are his number 1, so isn't that enough? Just keep doing your job as a housekeeper like you did before. I wondered why I had to endure such treatment from my sister-in-law. Seeing me staying quiet, Jackson said,
Hey, you get it now, right? Well, I can't do it right away, but eventually we'll just have our own home. Once I get a job, I won't be able to stay with the other family anyway.
I reached my limit of patience towards my unrepentant husband and my sister-in-law, who, despite being an outsider, talked down to me with her arrogant attitude. I received the results of the investigation, and there was actually something else I wanted to say to the 2 of them. However, I felt that it wouldn't be wise to say it at that moment. I don't want to continue the conversations with someone who looks down on me and treats me like a fool. I had come to feel that way. I've had enough. I muttered, and the next day, without saying anything to the two of them, I packed up my minimal belongings and left the house. After leaving home, I spent my time relaxing at my parents' house. During my marriage, my parents were worried about my husband's strong and overbearing attitude, and were somewhat against the marriage. However, I insisted that everything would be fine, and married my husband somewhat forcefully. Because of this, I found it difficult to confide in my parents about the struggles in my marriage. However, when I honestly talked to them about this incident, they warmly welcomed me. In fact, my father scolded me for not consulting with him earlier. Then, my husband and sister-in-law came to my parents' house. Since I didn't want to invite them in, we talked at the entrance. My husband was furious and yelled,
"What the hell are you doing? Why are you telling her?"
I firmly replied, "Since you're also deceiving the other person, it's obvious that you have to tell her. It's really pitiful for the other person who thinks that she's married to you." After receiving the results of my investigation, I called my husband's mistress and talked to her. At first, she couldn't believe it, but when I showed her photos and explained my husband's lifestyle here, she realized that there were many things that matched up, and she believed me. She seemed very shocked. Then she said, "I'm sorry for not knowing. I will break up with Jackson. I was already dissatisfied with him as I was the one working and supporting the household while he acted like a lord and did nothing." And then she left. I told my husband, "I heard various things about when you started dating your affair partner and when you proposed to her. I even went to your workplace and asked around, and there were various things that matched up. You didn't quit your job because you had a fight with your boss, but rather you quit to somehow balance your double life, right? I really can't believe it. You never had any intention of finding another job, did you?" After I said that, my husband had an indescribable expression on his face.
"Well, yeah, I was planning on continuing that lifestyle for a while,"
my husband said with an unconvincing tone. I piled on more. "You originally said that you found work troublesome, right? You said you liked both. In the end, you just wanted an easy life, didn't you? Having a double life may be a bit tough, but it was better than working, right? You could go back and forth between two households without doing any housework. Not wanting children was because it would make this lifestyle difficult, wasn't it? You were already cheating on me when I said I wanted children. At that time, you were thinking about how to maintain your double life in the future, right? You're truly the worst." My husband seemed to have nothing more to say in response. Then, my sister-in-law started to get angry. You told my husband where I was, didn't you? What are you going to do about it?" Regarding this matter, I calmly conveyed, "Yes, it seems that your ex-husband is searching for you, claiming that you ran away with money." I investigated my husband's affairs and also did my own research on my sister-in-law. It turns out that she didn't do any household chores and was caught cheating. Her husband filed for divorce, and she took all the money in the house and disappeared. It seems that her husband was desperately searching for her. However, when my sister-in-law asked my husband to hide her, he falsely reported to her husband's contact that she hasn't come to our place. I tried contacting her family, but it seems she hasn't gone back there either. This is the reason why my sister-in-law never left the house. I revealed the truth to my husband's other family and my sister-in-law's husband as a revenge against the two of them. When they both kept complaining at our doorstep, I told them that I would call the police if they continued to stay there. They panicked and left. Regarding what happened afterward, it seems that my husband was sued for marriage fraud by his mistress for consolation money. Of course, I also demanded consolation money from my husband for his infidelity. My sister-in-law also ran away again, but eventually she was found and was required to pay consolation money. It appears that my ex-husband and my sister-in-law continued to live in the same house that we used to live in. However, as they are both unemployed and paying consolation money, they can no longer afford the rent. They had a hard time finding a new place to live and ended up homeless. My ex-husband eventually found a part-time job, and they moved into a rundown apartment, but their financial situation remains difficult. They have never done any household chores before. As a result, the house is in complete disarray and has become like a hoarder's house. I received a contact from both of them again. They said they were sorry and wanted me to come back. However, I declined their offer. Currently, I am still living comfortably at my parents' house. Even if I meet a good partner in the future, I want to carefully choose someone who will not confuse being a dominant husband with being selfish. Thank you for watching.